So today we're going to get the ultimate guide to moving to Boise, Idaho, because Boise has a lot of places to live, obviously. But if you've never lived here and you're basically searching blind, you can end up more confused than ever. So not only does Boise have all of the suburbs like Meridian and Eagle and Nampa, but there's all of the neighborhoods and sections in each of those cities.
So much to learn.
And each of these cities is going to have different needs, prices, and wants that it meets. So it all depends on you and your family, and if that subdivision or city is going to fit those needs and wants. So let's look at every city in Boise, and then at the end, dive deeper into the top subdivisions and why they are the best places to live in the Boise area, so you can understand where you should move when you're moving to Boise. As a quick overview, Boise is in the Treasure Valley, which makes up a bunch of the suburbs. We have Meridian in the center, and then you have Eagle just north of Meridian and Kuna south of Meridian. And then Nampa and Caldwell are west. Those are going to be your farthest suburbs. And then we have Middleton and Star in the upper left of the valley, which is going to be your more country living. And we'll go into detail on all of these later. But let's start off with the Boise area, so you have it to compare to the rest of the valley, and you can compare Boise, which everybody knows, to all of its suburbs.
Let's get started.
So Boise is going to have a wide range of options, obviously, because Boise is the biggest city in the valley. You have the north end with Hyde Park outside of downtown. There's Southeast Boise, one of my favorites, the Boise Bench, South Boise, and then West Boise. All of these are offering different options, but we're going to start with the north end. So the north end is going to be your more upscale, kind of, I like to classify it as hipster style living.
You mean you want to dress like that?
With coffee shops, lots of people riding their bikes. There's historic homes, those kind of older 1900 houses, and it is right next to the downtown area, just north, kind of tucked up in the foothills. You also have extremely quick access to all of the hiking and biking trails in Boise, which are just right in the foothills, a 5-minute, even a 10-minute bike ride or a 5-minute drive, which is a huge plus if you like getting outside for those hikes, or if you love to mountain bike, which I know is really popular. That's an awesome place to live. The north end is also in the Boise School District and has some of the higher rated schools in the state. It has some of the top middle, elementary, and high schools, so you don't have to worry if you have kids if you're living in the north end. This is going to have more of a liberal city feel.
It's extremely offensive. I'm very liberal.
When you're driving through the north end, you'll see flags, pride flags on houses, and the city of Boise has a Democratic mayor now, which is a first in a while. So we've seen this happen over the last few years as Boise has grown and people have moved here. And it did not used to be this way. I remember as a kid never seeing any of that stuff and never having that in the Boise area, but it's definitely a newer thing. And the north end is just definitely more that way. And if that's something that's important to you, I think that's something that is good to know about. I'm Brady Fagel. I love helping people relocate to the Boise area. This is going to be quick, but whether in a week or a year, I post videos every single week, so you can subscribe, stay updated on everything that you need to know about Boise and moving here. And if you have any questions, please shoot me a text or a call. I look forward to helping you move to the Boise area. But let's get back into the video. So South Boise is south of I-84, obviously, out by the airport. You're going to have more land opportunity here, but it's going to be on some older areas. These will be a lot of your 1970s or 80s houses, or some of the ones with the split level housing where when you walk in the front door, you have an upstairs and a downstairs. And that's what's going to be on some of the land out in South Boise. There's also some new development, especially along the border of Meridian and Boise. It's also quiet out there, so you are out in the fields and the farms.
Don't that far.
You don't have all of the traffic you do in the other parts of Boise, especially around downtown, but you're still close to Overland Exit area. There's a movie theater and restaurants, Tucanos, which is a really good Brazilian buffet. It's one of my favorites. And then you have Costco and Fred Meyer all around that South Boise area. So it's a nice being able to jump in and grab those things when you need to, while not being in the heart of Boise where you have to deal with all of that traffic and all of the people. Moving on to West Boise. So West Boise is honestly my least favorite part of Boise, that or the bench. There's some areas that you just feel kind of sketched out. There's a lack of subdivision, so it's old homes mixed in with mobile homes, mixed in with apartments, mixed in with townhouses.
Not bad, just not the best.
And then the older stores and kind of those uglier older strip malls along the main roads. I personally stay away from the West Boise area in general, so I'm not going to bore you guys with the rest of the details. That gives a pretty good overview of what West Boise is going to be like. Now, the bench. The bench is a nice area in some spots. If you are up on the hill by the golf course looking down on the valley and mountain and you have kind of good views, it can be a good place to live. And there is some awesome mid-century homes in some of the older neighborhoods on the bench. You also have quick access to downtown and all of the parks that downtown Boise has to offer. And you're pretty much in the heart of Boise, so you're close to downtown, you're close to Southeast Boise, the airport, all of those things. A big con of the bench is similar to how West Boise is with a lot of the mixed housing, so you get all of the trouble BSU students that live in and around the bench, and you can have parts where your neighbors are in and out, whether it's renters or just going to class, going to parties, going to downtown. So it can get loud on the weekends, especially when you have BSU games. And it's, like I said, similar to West Boise, where you're going to have that mixed development, not as many neighborhoods, although there is the few that I mentioned with some of those mid-century houses. But it is better than the west side of Boise, in my opinion. Now, I'm going to save Southeast Boise for the end because it is a really popular spot. And I can go into a lot more detail at the end and really dive into some of those neighborhoods and why it is such a popular place to live. Now, the next suburb up is one of the least populated suburbs in Boise, and this is Caldwell. Caldwell is one of those cities that people forget about. It's a big reason for that is because Caldwell is just far from the things in the valley. It's the farthest suburb outside of the valley, and it's about a 40-minute drive into Boise if you take the interstate, and that can vary if you get bad traffic. But if you work in Boise, or you want to get into a lot of the amenities that Boise and Meridian have, which I'll talk about here in a little bit, it can be a pain to have to drive that commute every single day, that 45-minute drive.
I'm tired of it.
And some people hate that. If you're coming from another place like California where you're used to those commutes, it may not be as big of a deal, but that commute's definitely a problem. I know for me, anytime I go to Caldwell, which is rare, I have to prepare a little bit. But one of the reasons I do go to Caldwell is to go to downtown Caldwell and the Indian Creek Plaza there. It's great. There's an amazing restaurants. You have Indian Creek Steakhouse, an awesome steakhouse, Grit 2C, which they used to have the best nachos ever, but they got rid of them off the menu. So I'm a little upset about that. There's sushi there. And then we have Amano, a Mexican restaurant that made it onto the New York Times top 50 list for restaurants. So comment if you love Mexican food and you want to check out Amano. I haven't made it out there yet, but it's definitely on my list of things to do because I personally love Mexican food. Anyway, in the wintertime, there are millions of Christmas lights. There's a huge ice skating rink and plenty to do. And over the years, Caldwell has really upgraded its downtown. It used to be extremely sketchy. I remember as a kid hearing that all of the gangs were out there, but this is not the case anymore at all. It's definitely more safe. It's on the least safe side when it comes to the cities in the Treasure Valley, but that is mostly just outside of the downtown area. If you get outside of downtown to the west towards Lake Lowell, there is some nice subdivisions and a lot of options for nice homes on land out there. And then to the east around Shinden and towards Meridian and Nampa, there's some great communities being built by all of the builders in the valley. The big benefit with Caldwell is it's extremely affordable. So it is almost $100,000 cheaper in Caldwell, and that can vary a little bit, but it continues to grow and become nicer. And so if you want to spend less on a house and you want a home on land, or you just want to save some money, you can find some great deals and save some money in Caldwell if you're okay with some of the cons.
Saving money.
So there's a lot of opportunity there. A few cons other than the safety and the commutes that I talked about earlier is probably the school system in Caldwell. So you have some of the most low rated schools in Caldwell. When you compare it to the entire valley, Meridian and Eagle and Boise are going to be some of your better rated schools. So another con of Caldwell is definitely the school system. Now moving to Kuna, which is one of those popular and fast growing parts of the valley. I actually am just buying a house in Kuna, so me and my fiance are going to be moving out there, and there's a reason for that. I'll have a video to come on exactly why we moved out there and why it's such a popular place, and then I'll also put up a video here of the pros and cons of Kuna, so if you want to dive into more detail too. But it's a small town, and you get that feeling when you are out there. It has that older small town downtown feel, so those old houses or the old buildings with kind of that brick feel. And then you have like the car mechanic shop and the brick buildings with the older bar and shop, which can be really cool if you like that smaller town kind of historic downtown feel. It's also growing, and you have a brand new shopping center. So you have Ridley's, there's a D&B Supply, Panda, Wendy's. There's all of the food options, and there's some new commercial development coming into the area. It's right around Kuna High School. One of the cons is the commute to Kuna is a small con. It's about 20 to 25 minute drive to Meridian. Sometimes that can be shorter depending on where you're going. And then it's about a 30 to 45 minute drive into the Boise downtown. And if traffic's not bad or we don't have snow, that can definitely be better. But like I said, it is growing fast. So you have some great new build communities like Sterling Ranch, which I will have a video up on Sterling Ranch. So if you want to take some more detail into that, or you have Trilogy at Valor, which is out on Falcon Crest Golf Course. A lot of these communities like Trilogy and Sterling Ranch and all these new developments, they do offer a lot with pools and parks. And as Kuna grows, you're going to have an increase in your home value. So it can be a great investment to move to Kuna. That's one of the reasons that I actually wanted to move out there and why we are moving out there. And then also just with the way Kuna is right now, there's farms and cows, and there's a lot of open spaces. And in a few years or decade, my guess is that it's going to start looking a lot more like Meridian, and a lot of that's going to disappear because a lot of people like being outside of the Boise metro area and that smaller growing feel. And then there's some new developments in Kuna that is going to make it grow even more. Now, Eagle, Idaho is the bougie part of Boise, I guess.
Wow, Beverly Hills.
You could say, and the homes are more expensive here. There's extremely nice houses and extremely nice subdivisions. A lot of these real nice houses are going to be around the Boise River, kind of bordering Meridian. So the southern part of Eagle, northern part of Meridian. That area, you have houses on golf courses like Banbury. You also have two rivers next door to Banbury. There's River's Edge. And homes here are on a lot of private lakes with options to custom build and really have some amazing living. There's also just really awesome custom builds in place that come up for sale and move around. But as a kid, I spent a lot of time in these areas because I was sneaking on to those private ponds or getting permission from a friend and bass fishing or kayaking. Really, it's just a popular area of the valley, and if you can swing the price in that area, it's an amazing place to live. Eagle is obviously right along the Boise River, so you have easy access to the Greenbelt for your biking and hiking. All around downtown, there's restaurants, you have a movie theater in Eagle and shopping all right in the area. It is one of the best places to live in the valley if you like that way of living and if you're willing to pay the price. Now, Nampa, Idaho is the third largest city in the valley, so it has a lot to offer. There's also three main areas that I would personally live in, and one of them I live in right now. You have North Nampa, which is where I currently live, and this is going to be by the Garrity exit or the Karcher exit, depending on kind of what part you live in. Then there's a lot of new developments and brand new communities in this area, a lot of new builds by Hayden Homes, Toll Brothers, Leonard Homes is getting out there. So a lot of new build, new community opportunity there. It's a very similar story out by Lake Lowell in southwest Nampa. So you have houses on land out there. You have a lot of great new developments, same with North Nampa. And then around the golf course and west and east of downtown, you're going to have those new developments with a lot of land opportunity. The biggest benefit of Nampa is definitely going to be the affordability. So you're going to be spending $80,000 to sometimes $100,000 less out here than the rest of the Treasure Valley. So similar to the Caldwell story. And the biggest cons definitely going to be the Nampa area and the safety concerns around downtown, and then the industrial look and smell of Nampa with Amazon's warehouse. There's a lot of commercial property, especially as you drive through I-84. There's a cheese factory and then the sugar beet factory. It can kind of be unappealing.
It is ugly.
And the safety is going to be worse around downtown. That's where the least safe part of Nampa is. And when I worked downtown, we had a car stolen. And I've told this story before in other videos, but we had a car stolen from my coworker in the middle of the day, 5 feet from our front door. At lunch, we went out and found the truck was gone. And we went and searched for it. And like 30 minutes later, we found the truck a mile away across the railroad tracks. All of it was cleared out. The four-wheeler that was in the back of the truck was gone. The stickers were gone. Everything was gone. So that's definitely rare in downtown, but it can happen. And then the other thing that I found out recently is we were looking at homes in Nampa, and if you check the sex offenders list and you look at the map, Nampa definitely does have a lot more of that. So if you have a family and you want to be safe and you're worried about some of those things, downtown Nampa's something to at least check that map and make sure that the house that you're buying isn't going to be a problem, and you're going to feel safe with your kids. The other thing is the Nampa school system is also not as highly rated, kind of similar to Caldwell. So if you have kids, it may mean diving deeper into some of those specifics and knowing that the Nampa school district doesn't have the options that Meridian or Boise would have. But overall, Nampa is more affordable and is being upgraded. There's some great opportunity here for cheaper prices. There's still some great places to live. And I know that there's money coming into Nampa, and it's gonna slowly get nicer and nicer. Moving out to Star and Middleton, which is the northwest part of the valley. This is going to be some of the farthest communities in the Boise area other than Caldwell. Sometimes taking an hour or more to get into Boise from Middleton, especially depending on traffic and when weather's bad. Both of these towns are fairly similar, so I'm just going to lump them together. The biggest difference is that Star is growing a lot faster than Middleton and is going to have a lot more options for housing, grocery stores, amenities, plus it's closer to Meridian and Eagle. Out here you have more of that country style living with conservative values, which is true for the entire valley, but here it's even more so. And there's also fields, spaces to breathe, homes on land with an acre or more. And this is where more of your land opportunity is going to be in that more country feel. And it's going to be quiet if you live in the outskirts or even in the center of either of these cities. They both have new developments in and around the downtown area of both. And one of those new developments is in Star, and it's one of the really popular places that a lot of people are moving to. And I'm going to go over that at the end when we talk about some of the top neighborhoods and really narrow down some of the specific places that are really popular to move to. But overall, you're going to feel safe in Middleton and Star. It's going to be welcoming. You will just have some of those longer commutes. When comparing these two, though, when you have the schools in Middleton, they're going to be actually a little bit better. Middleton has its own individual school district, where when you're in Star, you only have one elementary school and one middle school. And with how fast Star is growing, you can get some of that overcrowding and that lower rated education for some of your kids. So something to look out for. I know there's plans to build some new schools in Star, but those are one of the differences between the two is Middleton's going to have that better school system. Meridian, so the hot spot in the Treasure Valley, and for good reason. This is where I will start going into some more detail on some of those top neighborhoods that I promised I would go over in the Treasure Valley. But first, Meridian is a hub. You have the Village, which is one of the most popular places to shop, eat, grab coffee, and just hang out. You have Kleiner Park right there, of course, next door to the Village, which has concerts, a park, there's pickleball court, frisbee golf, ponds to fish at, and an awesome walking trail to get outside. No matter where you live in Meridian, you're going to feel safe. You're going to have access to everything you need. There's grocery stores, restaurants, shops on every corner, it seems like. And so no matter which subdivision or area you choose, you will have nice new developments of stores and shopping or restaurants right next door to wherever you live in Meridian. The school system in Meridian is also going to be the top. You have the top elementary school, middle school, high school in the state, some of the top ones, especially charter schools. So you can feel good with that if you have kids on top of everything great about Meridian. Now, jumping into the top neighborhoods. First up, we have Century Farm in Meridian, which is going to be right on the border of Meridian and Boise, south of I-84, right off Eagle Road. The homes in here are just awesome. It's a great community. My fiance used to teach at the elementary school in Century Farm, and anytime I would go visit her or volunteer for her school to help with the kids, for some reason there's just souped up golf carts, and apparently it's a requirement that you have to have a souped up golf cart in Century Farm. There's kids and parents driving around with them all over. When kids get picked up from the schools, there's just a line of these souped up golf carts. So for whatever reason, that's a super popular thing in Century Farm. The home value here are going to be a little bit higher. It's going to be in the $600,000 to $900,000 range, with the beautiful amenities that all the neighbors have, with beautiful amenities that all of the neighborhoods have. I think Century Farm has 5 swimming pools. It also has a walking trail and beautiful landscaping, as you will see, and it's really just a top place to be. Next up is the Oaks in Meridian. This is a bunch of communities built by Toll Brothers, and this is right off of McMillan and Black Cat. And there's a wide range of options here, which makes it nice. You have homes as low as $380,000, and then you obviously have your more expensive homes. You're gonna have your pools like all of these neighborhoods, and your walking trails. The walking path along the canal through some of these neighborhoods is really nice. I used to walk on that. My grandma lives across the street from the Oaks, and it also has the amazing landscaping, which is par for all of these awesome neighborhoods. The schools are going to be Ponderosa Elementary, which is actually where I went to school, and Sawtooth Middle School, where I also went, and then the brand new high school, Waihee High School, which has some of the top sports academics. It has a really good sports program over there. And overall, the Oaks is just a really popular spot, and it's a really nice neighborhood, extremely safe, and definitely a place you want to live in the valley. Next up is Bridge Tower, which is right down the street from the Oaks. This is another extremely popular subdivision in Meridian, and one that you would love to live in. As a kid, I spent a lot of time here with friends, hanging out at the pool and parks in this neighborhood. A lot of childhood memories here, and enjoyed growing up in this neighborhood. You're gonna have a lot of the same $600,000 to $900,000 mark homes that you kind of saw in Century Farm, and it is just a great location. You have a huge park at the start of the subdivision, which has a beach volleyball court. There's 2 pools, a walking trail along the canal that goes through the center of the subdivision, and then, as always, the beautiful landscaping. The schools here are very similar to the Oaks, so you have Hunter Elementary, and then Heritage or Sawtooth Middle School, and then you have Rocky Mountain High School, which is where I actually graduated from. And both the Oaks and Bridge Tower are going to have Winco, Fred Meyer, Costco, parks, and then there's a ton of food and restaurant options also. And so that's really nice to have that right within a mile of your house if you just want to run some errands or you want to grab a bite to eat with the family at some of the restaurants. A nice added benefit there with Bridge Tower and the Oaks. Now, going into the rest of the valley and saving my favorite neighborhood of all for the very end. First, we have Sterling Ranch in Kuna. So this is right in Kuna, next door to the Bi-Mart and Ridley's in Kuna, and a lot of the brand new restaurants and shopping centers. It's also next door to Kuna High School, so if you have kids in that age range, it can be convenient to live right next door to the high school. Or if they just want to walk or get a ride to school. It is also right off of Meridian Road, so when you're coming into Kuna, it's the first subdivision when you get into the town itself, and that makes it extra convenient for your trips into Meridian or Boise. If you have to commute for work, you can just hop right on Meridian Road, and you have a straight shot into town or into the interstate. It also has a pool and community center, and it has great selection of homes. Overall, just one of the premier neighborhoods in the entire valley, but especially for Kuna. Trilogy at Valor is the next top spot to live, located just outside of Kuna. This is going to be right on Falcon Crest Golf Course and is closer to the Boise area, pretty close to the airport. So you have a quick drive to the airport or Costco and all of the amenities on the overland exit that I talked about earlier. One of my favorite parts of the community is that it is right on the golf course, and for the selection of homes you get being right on the golf course, it's a really great price, from $600,000 to $900,000. And part of this is there's plans for Falcon Crest to become one of the first private golf courses in the entire valley. So that could make it very exclusive and very desirable, which of course, if you increase the demand of those houses, the value goes up. So an awesome option there, especially for investment purposes, which most houses, that's why it's an investment. It's not just a place to live. Trilogy at Valor also has a 55 plus community. So if you're looking to retire, it can be a pretty sweet spot to retire right on the golf course in a quieter part of town while still having access to some of the downtown Boise area, Kuna, and then you're not super far from some of the hospitals and medical care within Boise. You have Meridian, you have the hospital there, and then St. Al's in Boise, which is probably about 15, 20, maybe 25 if traffic's bad. Next up, we have one of my favorite parts of Boise. So this is Southeast Boise. This is the part of Boise that is outside of town a little bit, while still being connected, meaning you have some great neighborhoods around the Simplot area, right up against the mountains with hiking trails and lots of room to your east, so that you can't build east of Southeast Boise. They're not allowing any more developments out there. So you have a lot of just open space, sagebrush, and open areas to get outside and go for a hike, which is really nice. You also get to live right next to the Boise River, and you're only 15 minutes away from Lucky Peak. So if you have a boat or you like to just get out on the lake, that's nice to just be able to drive 10-15 minutes up the road and get out on the lake, especially in the summertime when it gets hot here. All of this while you're 10 to 15 minute drive into downtown Boise. There's also communities along the foothills right up against the Boise River with some really mature, beautiful areas. And so Southeast Boise has its own little shops and restaurants, which is in between the area that I just talked about and then the foothills. It's kind of along the Boise River, which makes it really nice. If you don't want to go into downtown, you can just go to some of those nice local shops and restaurants to have a night out on the weekends. Next up is Legacy and Eagle. This is a series of communities that ranging widely in price, but it's a sweet development with a golf course, tennis courts, tons of walking paths, pools, and one of the best things in there is that there's a lot of private ponds, but you can have a lot of waterfront properties and you don't have to spend $1 million plus. So all over Legacy is those private ponds on waterfront properties. It also has some of the most amenities and cool features in the entire valley, while offering first-time homebuyer homes all the way up to like luxury builds in the $1 million+ range. So definitely a top place to live. The only downfall is the location and the inflated prices in Eagle, having to pay so much more. Legacy is located off of Floating Feather in between Star and Eagle. So it's a little out of town, making it a lot of your commutes a bit farther. So that can definitely be a con. But Legacy is a top place to live in the valley, and it's definitely somewhere you want to live. Now, the last neighborhood before I go into one of the coolest places in the valley is Heron River and Star. This is a super popular place to live. Heron River is right in the heart of Star, so you're literally right next to Ridley's and some of the shops and restaurants, and while also being right up against the Boise River. It's actually connected to the Boise River, which makes it really cool. You also have waterfront properties and beautiful homes on bigger lots, which is definitely a big plus, and this is going to be one of the top neighborhoods in Star and in the entire valley. Now, lastly, one of the coolest spots and one of my favorites is Hidden Springs, Cartwright Ranch, Dry Creek Ranch Estates. Some of these are the most desirable homes in the entire valley. Now, after this, let me know which one in the comments out of all the neighborhoods that I've gone through, which subdivision is one of your favorites. Now, back to Hidden Valley, Idaho, which is where this neighborhood is located. It's a really small town just outside of Boise and kind of outside of Eagle too. It's in between the two, tucked up into the mountains. So this is a place, it's its own little spot with everything you would ever need. I love how it's like its own little getaway just outside of the valley. You're right in the mountains, away from the city. It's a master plan community, which means it's above and beyond any subdivision or neighborhood you're going to find in the valley. It has its own farm. There's an equestrian center for your horses. There's miles of hiking trails and, of course, pools and things to do in every single area of this place. The community has events, and you would truly feel like you have your own little spot in Boise. It's like its own little self-sustaining area out here.